You're watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
Thanks for coming back with us. Our guest this morning, LaChawn Smith, is the principal of Sunset Elementary School, and Dorothy DeShields. Dr. Dorothy DeShields is a former principal and educator. What? You are a doctorate, and a member of the New Hanover County School Board. We said we were going to talk about this notion that Dr. Williams, Walter Williams, a columnist and an economist, put out that higher teacher pay and smaller class size is not the answer. And he cites Washington, D.C. spends about $15,000 per student and has smaller than average class sizes. Their average teacher salary is $61,000. And he says they get poor results in academic achievement. Dorothy, what do you?
I think Dr. Williams has a very narrow perspective there. He's looking at one place. There is a body of research that shows that small class sizes will improve student achievement.
Do we get better teachers offering better salary?
I think so. I think so.
LaChawn, what's your experience with smaller class size and increased achievement? As a principal, are you able to evaluate that?
Well, I think that there is definitely some benefit to having smaller class size, and there is some research out of the state of Tennessee that very much supports that. But I don't think that you can just simply reduce student numbers in a classroom and expect to get the good results. I think what you have to have is ensure that you have children who are ready to learn, as well as teachers who are prepared to teach. And I think also increasing teacher salary would cause the profession to be even more appealing to folks who may not have considered education as a profession just simply because they were looking to go into professions that compensated a little differently. But there is definitely benefit to smaller class size, and I think that there is definitely benefit to being able to compensate teachers for the work that they do.
Yeah. A colleague of yours on the school board, Don Hayes, is the gentleman who sent the column to the rest of the board, and he said it interested him because of its focus on the failure of measures such as small class size and increased teacher salary to make a difference in the test scores of unsuccessful school systems. What was your reaction, Dorothy, as a school board member when you got that column?
I think some of us took it as a negative because of the way that the article was written. It was written in a very, very negative vein. And also, the article did not present any hope for improving student achievement for Black students. And I think for me, it was a slap in the face. It was saying, regardless as to what we do, the children are not going to do any better anyway. And that's certainly not true.
And then the chair of the New Hanover County School Board, Ed Higgins, also weighed in, and we're going to put this quote up on the screen. He said, I find it interesting that when we hear we need to discuss these issues, it's issues quite often that are dictated by one person's agenda or another, instead of saying, can we lay this out on the table and talk about it? That was a quote from the chair of the New Hanover County School Board. Do you think that race is often the elephant in the room that has a big presence, but it's not acknowledged and everyone kind of tiptoes around it?
Yes, I think that's true throughout the South and could be throughout the country. If the article had been presented in a closed session meeting for discussion, it probably would have been received a little better. Like, what do you think? And
then it went viral. I mean,
yes.
Everybody
Yes.
got copies of that
exactly.
article. What is your response to that? Do you think that race is the elephant in the room and we all kind of tiptoe around it? Nobody wants to like lay it out there and say, let's talk about it.
I think that many times it can be, but I think that as educators, we now are even more committed to addressing the needs of all children and recognize that we have to have this conversation. and we have to have this very honest dialogue. But I think it can be.
Yeah, one thing everyone seems to agree on is that there is a general achievement gap in education between the white and black student population. What's the current approach to solving that problem?
Well, there are many approaches, and LaChawn can tell you many of the things that they are doing now in the classroom to close the achievement gap. Our board has just begun to acknowledge that there is a serious problem. I think sometimes when we look at the total picture and we forget that there are groups of children that are not faring well in our school system, it makes some people just look at the good things that are happening. So I think now, just recently, probably about 3 months ago, there was a report presented to the board that specifically showed some of the concerns that we need to have as a board. And so now I think the entire board has begun to articulate what needs to be done, the changes that needs to take place.
You know, one of the questions I wanted to ask was, what are the roots of the problem? But I'm afraid we'd spend the rest of the show. Is there any quick capsule you can give? What are the roots of that problem? It's historic for certain.
Yeah, it would take us all day to talk about it.
Well, do the Williams comments qualify for public discussion by the school board? Let me ask you that, since you're a school board member. Do they qualify for
I don't think so. I think we need to talk about what's happening within our system at this point. And we've begun a process of strategic planning, which I think has helped us to lay some things on the table and to begin the discussion.
What about the idea that education in general has been dumbed down to present a bigger umbrella for academic achievement, or that so underachievers have been passed along to help with graduation and dropout rates?
I think if that is true, the No Child Left Behind legislation has brought attention to that particular problem, and it is no longer a problem.
Now, is education, are the standards as high today as when you and I were in school? The standards?
I don't think so. I went to Williston Senior High School, and certainly the standards were extremely high. The expectations of parents and teachers were kept very high for us, and we've got to get back to that.
We're going to come back. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and I can speak to it from a content perspective, and I think that now we are asking children to do a lot of things that maybe before they did in the upper grades. So I think that there has been a transformation. And so maybe there's a change in the standards when you look at content-specific types of things. We are asking our children to do a great deal.
Because Governor Perdue, and we're going to talk about this right after the next break, Governor Perdue said that about 2/3 of the applicants to community colleges don't have the basic skills and have to retake courses in order to qualify. We'll come back and talk about that. Stay with us.